This show is brought to you by the Deluxe Edition Network. Head over to the Den.show for other great podcasts. Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of Deluxe Edition. However, today Casey can't join us. Casey can't join us, Paul. He can't. This is the first time I've done a show without Casey. He's already done one without me, so I'm going to do one without him. And he can't join us because it's summer and vacations and work schedules and all sorts of shit. He's such a good guy. He's out there pre-chewing food for the elderly. He's just that fucking good. And I said, I want you to do that. I'll do a show. I'll do a show without you. Because I remember there's a topic that Casey knows nothing about, hair metal. And I know a guy who we've talked about on the show. Mr. Paul Salfen is joining me today. We've talked in the past about you, Paul, because we have gone on some zany adventures, and it was usually around those hair metal years. We're like, you and me became hair metal experts just because we hung out in those scenes.
That's right. I don't know if that's something to be proud of or ashamed of, but I've got so much of my, my storage space in my head devoted to this, and I can't do anything about it. I can't get rid of it. We might as well talk about it. Might as well make it useful somehow.
It's crazy. Like, I'll just sit there one day and be like, I wonder whatever happened to Shark Island. Like, how much real estate in my brain does Shark Island take up now? Because I could totally use that real estate on something else.
You know, it's worse for me because I think the same thing. And then I'd go down the rabbit hole and I go, oh, look, Shark Island. Hey, look, the singer's still around. Hey, well, I should do an interview with him. And the next thing I know, I'm talking to the singer of Shark Island for an hour, and so, so it's one step further down the rabbit hole. And actually, it's been pretty interesting, like really just talking to all these guys that, were the soundtracks to our teen years.
I know, dude. It's like, all right, so I'm going to let you introduce yourself in a minute because I was thinking, how do I introduce Paul? There's so many things I could say about him, but I'm going to let you go ahead and introduce yourself the way that you wanted. But it's like, just these guys, we grew up in such awe of them. And you have met most of them. I've met some of the hair metal guys. But like when you meet them, and you've met the biggest people in the world. I can't imagine, but I was with you when we met like Billy Joel and Howard Stern. But I walked next to a hair metal guy, and I get all nervous. I met Kip Winger, and I was holding a plastic cup, and I was trembling. And I cracked the cup because I was trembling so much. I don't know. They're not just regular people to me. They're like huge deals to me.
Yeah, I mean, you're totally right about it because the thing is like during those like impressionable years, we spent so much time and so much impressionable space, in our heads for this. And so it might be a little bit unreasonable, but, some of these guys I've actually become friendly with and, I have their numbers in my phone, and like sometimes we text each other and sometimes they'll be like, hey, Paul, can I put you on the guest list? Or, hey, are you going to come hang out with us or what? Hey, don't leave without saying hi. And it's just like, wow, my like 13, 14, 15-year-old self would just be like so excited right now. And so it is really cool. But I do look at them a little bit different than the celebrities because, it is really cool to talk to the Hugh Jackmans of the world and the Ryan Reynolds and the Rock and people like that. But man, when Tracy Guns texts you and it's like, hey, bro, like it's really cool, because I tried for hours to play even half of one of his solos, and I just can't do it. I'm just Neanderthal in that way.
Yeah, I am going to get to your intro. I didn't forget, but it's like that hair metal moment was brief, but it was powerful. Right? Yeah. Those guys, those people left an impression. We're going to talk a little more about it. So, Paul, why don't you tell the audience a little about you?
Yes. So my name is Paul Salfen, and I produce and co-host a show with Drew Pearson, which may not mean a whole lot in Philadelphia because he's one of our Dallas Cowboys greats. However, aside from all that, he went into the Hall of Fame last year, so we're super proud of him. And after working with him for about 10 years and doing a show on Fox Sports and ABC with him, it's really cool to see him get his due and see all these great people who people that are celebrities that are fans of him that want to be on the show because they want to talk to him. And so that's kind of a cool thing. And then, have some of them say, oh, I've been watching the show or I've been, seeing what you do. And, that's really cool. And I also write and edit for AM/FM magazine out of Austin. And what else? Part of the Critics' Choice Awards, and so we probably have what was known as like the third kind of number three awards show. There's the Oscars, and then the Golden Globes, and us, and now the Golden Globes are. I don't know what's going to happen with them. We kind of moved up, and we've gone international, and on cable, and regular TV. So that's pretty exciting. And then I just do TV and radio stuff for everything from here in Dallas to Dubai to, basically I'm a talking monkey. So, they put the mic in front of me or they make me an offer and then I just go, oh yeah, sure. It's great. Uh,
Well, you
yeah.
know what's cool? So you're out in Dallas, and
Yes,
like I need any excuse to get down to Dallas because
please do.
you're the kind of person that like we hate. People like us
What?
plebs, because we're going through our Instagram and there you are at the Grammys, and it's like, oh, what the fuck, Paul? Like, I'm home cleaning the toilet. So you do got a pretty awesome life. But whenever I can come visit you, I do, because Dallas is like, to me, it's like a mini Hollywood. There is
Yeah.
so much going on and so much celebrities, doing things all around. We went not too long ago. I remember you got us into that Willie Nelson concert. That was like one of the
Yeah.
most amazing days, because that continued into some other things and meeting other people. I was like, when you hang out with Paul, interesting shit just snowballs. It has
Yeah.
always been like that with you. When we were kids, right?
Mhm.
How old were we? Like 14? And we all found each other in high school. It was you, me.
Mhm.
I know Steve was around. Steve met another friend. And we all kind of found each other on this hair metal stuff, right?
Mhm.
Because did you think as well that our high school, there weren't many people into hair metal, even though it was as big as it was? We were kind of the only ones. We were that little nerdy table at lunch.
Yeah, we really were. And I think that, the thing is now you see kids, I mean, maybe even your own kids, they know so much. They have so much information in front of them. If you'd imagine what our lives would have been like going down those rabbit holes and being like, we knew almost, and maybe that's part of the reason why some of it's so special to us, because we didn't know too much. We're just like, wow, look at this album. And we'd listen to it and we just didn't know any, and we'd look at the names on the back, and that's about all we had until we went to go see them. And so, just having that little community of people, it's just kind of like, this is like our thing. It didn't really matter. It probably was better that it was our own little thing rather than, having everybody in the school be like, oh, what's up? You going to see Dangerous Toys? Might not have been as special. I don't know.
But I remember like we were going out at 15, 16, going to places
Oh,
because a
God.
lot of these were all ages clubs. And I
Yeah.
remember like we went to see Widowmaker, which was Dee Snider's
Yeah.
other band. And I don't think we were 18. And we're hanging out at some of these places with all these, rocking kids who were older and even older 21-year-olds. It was like, who lets kids loose to hang out like this? But our parents did. It was a different time. Your dad used to drive us to New York just so we could like walk around and get used to. Your dad letting me do that has like absolutely changed my life. But it's
Yeah.
luck like that, knowing you and your father, that like really led me into a lot of cool shit, because you knew everything about music and everything about, especially hair metal at the time. So I was like a student of yours.
Oh gosh. Well, the funny thing is that we also got very lucky being in a strange part of Pennsylvania, outside of Philadelphia even, and we had the dumb luck of having two clubs that would let us in. Like I can't think of any place now that this would really work. But there's a club called Bonnie's Rocks in Atco, New Jersey, which is now I think a Home Depot, sadly. But it was this really bizarre thing where the the people that were over 21 were in this cage. Trying to set this up so people understand. Like it was a club, just like you would see, except for the bar had a fence over it. Like you couldn't even like really see what was going on in there. They're like caged animals.
Yeah,
And
dude, it looked
so
like the Motley Crue videos. Like it
yeah,
looked,
yeah.
Caged Animals is exactly right.
And it was almost like mysterious, like what goes on in there, what happens like in there. And we were in this all ages spot, and it was seriously all ages. Like we were like 15 years old, and like wow, in a bar, and it was loud as could be. People could still smoke in there. Gosh, now I sound like I'm 90 years old. But they, and the inside the bathroom, the bunch of people that had peed there and signed the wall, like Ace Frehley and Vivian Campbell, and all this stuff, and it was just like, wow, and then there's that little tiny dressing room that we were lucky enough to sometimes like squeeze into, and it was just like such a cool thing. And the cell block was kind of the same thing. They had their over 21 was on an island, and the all ages was just open. And I found myself. I guess that's part of how I did. I roadied for a couple of bands like Christine, and I would just carry guitars. And so I think once you were in there, people were like, it was the dark ages, so people didn't text each other and be like, "Hey, who's this kid running around?" They're just like, "Eh." And there's so much we got away with because it was the dark ages. We would show up and go meet people, and there's no one for them to look around and ask. They're just like, "Oh, hey, what's going on?"
Yeah.
Just walk back places, and it was really bold, but we did it, and it really shaped our lives. It's true.
Yeah, I feel like I was able to go off to school and be more independent because we did some pretty independent things. I mean, we now in hindsight, we were good kids. Like we didn't do bad shit, but we were hanging out in an environment where we could have easily turned to the guy on our left and been like, "Yo, man, can I have that beer?" Like you would have been like, "Here you go, kid." Like, but we never did any of that. We were really good. One of the bands that we got into was Heaven's Edge. So
Yes.
Heaven's Edge. We're bonded forever on this band. So Heaven's Edge, I think their album came out in 90 because hair metal really was what? It was like 1988 to like 1991 was the end of it. There wasn't too much. That was the sweet spot. And Heaven's Edge, I remember, came out a little bit towards the end. So I feel like it was around 91. But it was, one of those bands with really fast guitar, and Paul and I always loved the really fast guitar players. We were learning guitar, and that was always, inspirational to us. There was Ibanez guitars, right? They used to put out this catalog. And it was like anybody who's endorsed by Ibanez, that was like the rock god. That's the guy you looked up to. Steve Vai, Joe Satriani, John Petrucci, I remember was in there, a bunch of others. And then there was Reggie Wu. Reggie Wu from Heaven's Edge, local Philadelphia band Heaven's Edge. And at some point, I remember we're all looking to learn guitar. And, Heaven's Edge had its kind of up, had a hit on Headbangers Ball, right? Which meant everything back then. And then that was it. It didn't go any further. But then you saw an ad, guitar lessons taught by Reggie Wu in like Clementon, New Jersey, which was an hour and a half on a good traffic day from us, usually 3.5 hours. And we would go every Saturday morning and get lessons. Who is that damn dedicated to an instrument to go all the way to that guy? We did it.
We did. And part of it actually, I think that also helped. And Reggie was such and is such a special guy, and was so encouraging of us. And there was just something so cool, even if no one else in the school knew it or thought about it. There's something so cool to us to have a guy that other people look up to, that had a record deal, that was on MTV, and he was our guitar teacher, and then our friend. And just someone that really like cared about us, and it kind of fleshed things out, because these guys were always sort of these untouchable or unattainable stars, and we found a way to beat them, but actually getting to know somebody like that, and just realizing, well, yeah, they're just people, but they are special people. They do have a special skill, and that's why you're interested in them. It kind of like, I don't know, something clicked, something made sense. And I was like, oh, okay, well, any of these guys could be just Reggie. They could be your friend. They could be someone that helps you, someone that teaches you something. And I think that's stayed with me my whole career.
Yeah. Yeah. And Reggie's a really special person too. If you ever meet him or see him interviewed or see him playing, because I love right now, 80s bands are kind of getting that resurgence. And it's like people are digging this stuff. I don't know if you saw the Peacemaker show. Like, I love all the hair metal that was in there. And there's some really obscure stuff in that too.
Yeah. And that's great for those bands too, because a lot of them didn't get their due. And I always wonder, like, what it would have been like, had Spotify been around, or Apple Music, or any, or even social media, just where people would share this stuff, I wonder how many people would have loved bands like Heaven's Edge or Dangerous Toys or things like that, that just, it just totally escaped them. It totally passed them by, only because, it was the dark ages.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, just think about how much that all, you talked about how it shaped us. I mentioned earlier how it shaped us, but even like Reggie's inspiration, I mean, he's very father figure like, right?
Mm-hmm.
I got to tell the story. Don't let me forget the story about the morning announcement. Oh,
Yes.
no, you know what? I got to go right to this story. This is my favorite. Talk about it. This is the most innocent story in the world. So we go to a concert. I mean, I don't even think I was there. You know what? I wasn't there. You and Joe and maybe some others went to a Heaven's Edge concert. All right. We're so
Mm-hmm.
naive, right? We don't understand that at the end of the night, these guys are hammered, right? And we have no idea that they're hitting on all the pretty women in the audience.
Yeah.
But bringing them backstage and all this stuff. But Paul, you guys figured out somehow if we can get a media pass and get in, and we'll air this for the morning announcements of a high school, right? So 16, 17, and 18-year-olds. And all of a sudden, we're all just kind of watching the morning announcements. And Paul, you worked in the AV club. And hey, this is Paul, and I want to show you something really cool. We went backstage with a major act from Columbia Records, or like whatever. I can't remember what they were, but maybe I was right. Maybe it wasn't. And all of a sudden, I'm like, is this going to be a segment on Heaven's Edge? And all of a sudden, it is drunken Mark Evans, drunken this guy. I can't remember. They're so drunk. They're like, oh yeah, man, it's the best being a rock star. And like I remember looking up at this homeroom teacher who like never paid any attention and looked up and went, "What the hell is this?" Still, the rest of the class didn't look up because they never would, But I remember being so happy to see it. Like I know you didn't realize how drunk they were because I didn't really either until I started to think about it a little more. I'm like, they were acting a little weirder than usual. We're so innocent at 16.
Oh yeah, and that's the funny thing too, is that all of that was because of a misunderstood assignment. Like that should have never happened. The teacher, Mr. Chen, just this gruff little guy would always be like, he's like, I don't even know why they had me on camera. I had like a mullet, and rock t-shirts and ripped jeans. Like, why would you put someone like that on camera unless you're making fun of them? And so, they put me on the weather, and, of course, being the dark ages, they had like the poster board and, they would write the weather. And so, and, my vision, in the morning was not so good. And so I'd be squinting and I'd be like, today it's 70 and class, and I think people are like, is he high? And I wasn't, it was just, I was just like a bad choice for a weather guy, but I don't know. Maybe they didn't have anybody else, or maybe I wasn't good behind the camera. I don't know.
Dude,
So
it was
anyway,
the AV club. They didn't have anybody else. They were lucky
yeah,
to have you, so they let you do whatever you wanted.
thank goodness. And so he goes, wow. And, we had to do these other segments because, it wasn't just news, sports, and all that stuff. We had to do special segments. And so he's like, well, you like music, go talk to some bands. And he just literally just waved me off. And I was like, okay. So me and our friend Joe DeLucas, he got the big clunky camera. He would hold the camera. I had the mic. And we would go like to the backstage door of like the Trocadero downtown Philadelphia, or any of the Chestnut Cabaret, like all these like places, and just knock on the backstage door, knock on the bus door, knock on the van door, or just stand there and wait for them to come out and be like, well, hey, our show sucks, but will you be on it? And every last one of these guys was like, sure, kid. And there is no good reason that they should have. As you said, they were drinking. They were just trying to hang out, and but they didn't. They just saw a light and a camera and the guy with the mic, and they're like, yeah, all right,
Yeah,
And
it's
then some
amazing.
of them were so cool to be able to take us backstage, and on stage. And like in wherever they were, and that was just the coolest thing to me. And I just thought, I always want to do this. But
Yeah.
we brought the footage back, and the teacher just smacked his head, Mr. Chen. He goes, I meant bands in the school. And I was like, oh no. And he wanted us to go talk to some crappy like band, like go to their band practice, or I don't know what he wanted,
Wow.
but so of course we had this stuff, so we aired it, and he goes, I don't know how you did it, but no, good job. He's still pretty dismissive, but I just thought, I want to talk to all the bands. And, keep in mind, this is also the dark ages. So we didn't know how to, we're in Warminster, Pennsylvania. There's no clear path as to how to get a hold of these people. Sometimes inside the records or CDs or cassettes, goodness,
Yeah.
they had like an address where you could write to people, and it was usually like a PO box in LA. And there was just I just had no idea, how do you get a hold of these people? But we did, or sometimes we just tried to, and it just sort of set off something in me that was like, man, I want to just, yeah, I want to hear the stories. I want to hear how these guys, how they tick, what makes them work, what makes them want to get up in the morning and do this. And I want to just hear how cool it is to be who they are.
Yeah. No, you stayed with the Hollywood scene and all that, and the music scene and everything.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I'm getting back into it a little with this show, but it was like, man, sometimes I wonder, maybe I made the wrong turn. I should have followed Paul to Dallas.
Oh no. I mean, the thing is like it's a whole lot of fun. I've had a great time doing it, and I've stumbled into some amazing situations, some crazy parties, some crazy award shows, and things that I've traveled with bands that I grew up listening to, and been able to take planes with people. Just like, I remember being in South America on a plane with Gene Simmons going, that my little kid self would just be like just so excited and just dancing right now, and just
No, let me pause you there. This
yeah,
segue is just too good not to pause you, because I was going to
yeah,
say, let's try to do a speed round of the
oh yeah,
craziest memories that we have, and you just
oh
named
god,
one.
okay.
This is going to be hard for me because I got a terrible memory, but like
Ooh.
140 characters, no more. I
Okay,
remember.
all
Here's
right,
one, the one
all
that
right.
I came to mind. You and I bumped into Lita Ford somewhere. We were with
Hmm.
Lita Ford, and you knew that her husband was an MMA fighter, and you said, "Oh, how is?" and mentioned his name, and she started crying. We made her
Okay,
cry, and we
I
felt
do know
so
this part.
bad
Yeah,
because now she's in full tears in front of so many people. You remember that?
yeah, I do. That was at Chiller Theater, and I had asked if I could interview her, and she was very tough to try and to get a hold of or to try and interview back in the day. And she was, I think maybe known to be like a little bit of a diva or something, because I remember Joe and I were at her show, and we were hoping to interview her. And there's a couple other bands on the bill, one of them being Tough, which that guy went on to make the Metal Sludge, site. And Joe had, while we were recording, Joe heard her yelling in the other room about who were all the people backstage, and I don't know.
Oh, really?
So
Yeah.
so it's just one of those things. But she was so nice, and yeah, she
Yeah, it
started
was such a
telling us,
human moment. Yeah.
yeah. And she started, and she was laughing. I got a great picture of her laughing with her head on my shoulder. And there's so many great moments. But yeah, something. She started talking about her kids, and I guess she had just gone through a divorce or separation or something, and just started
Yeah.
crying. And I was like,
Yeah.
oh no! In all my
Yeah.
years, I still didn't
No.
know like what to do, because that's only happened a few times, and it's usually
You've
I
made
don't
other celebrities
do.
cry? We're going to have a
No,
whole show about who you made cry.
no. I mean, that's the thing. Every once in a while, you just start talking about something, that brings up a memory or gets them emotional. But it's never my intention to. I usually like to keep it light and fun and kind of
Yeah.
just figure out who they are and what makes them tick. I'm not like TMZ. I don't ask the bad questions, and I don't try and like get a rise out of them. But sometimes, like
You told
there's
me
a
about a guy that you took to the airport one time. That blew me away. I don't know if do you remember who it was?
Jake Lee.
Jake Ely. And to this day,
Yeah.
any single time I hear that Ozzy album, which I love, I think
Hmm.
about you alone with him in the airport, just driving to the airport. Like
Yeah.
weird things like this happen to you. That's why I'm trying to get a lightning round going, because you
Yeah.
got a
Well,
million of them.
Yeah, that's one that wouldn't. I don't know that. I mean, of course, I remember that, but that's one that maybe wouldn't come to mind. Just there's been so many. But yeah, I was at the Cell Block, and I think our friend's band was opening for them, and so he was there, and I was like, wow, it's Jake E. Lee, and he's running around trying to figure out how to get his girlfriend from the airport, and again, dark ages, so there's no Uber, there's no internet to figure this out, and I was like, well, I'll take you. And he's like, oh, you would? And so we got to ride the whole way there. And he's super, super quiet, kind of a shy guy. But then if you get him talking, like he's great. And then I remember we picked up his girlfriend, and they just made out in the back seat the whole time, and I'm just driving. I'm like, all right. And then, of course, he made sure I got on the list, and whatever you need, So that was just a cool moment for me. In fact, I interviewed him probably, let's see, 3 years ago, and he was so different, and he was wearing pajama pants. He just did not care, and just the stuff he was saying was so wild, and I was just like, wow, that's good. And I almost brought up the van story, and I was like, nah, it's all right.
Oh man, we've been in an elevator. I don't care about telling this tale. I hope you don't mind. We've been in the elevator with that guy from Everclear. He was such an asshole to us. Remember that? There was a celebrity that I tried to get into a fight with because I was drinking too much. Like, one day we're just going to have to remind yourselves of all these stories.
Speed round. Yeah.
Oh,
yeah. It's so funny. I have a great, I've always had this in my life. I kind of purge all the bad stuff. You'll have to probably dig it out of me. Like what's something terrible or I was like, gosh, I don't know. Like if someone's a jerk to me, I just kind of like, I'm back of the mind, because I've had so many good things. I don't really focus on the bad stuff. I generally tend to forget it,
Those are the things I remember. I remember almost getting hit by Eddie Van Halen's driver when he came driving around. We were on the curb. I remember these things.
Oh gosh, I don't know. But yeah, it's been fun though. I've had some really like crazy, amazing, fun experiences, and yeah, I mean, we'd do a speed round if you want. Let's see what we think.
No, it's getting too late. And I'm a big crybaby about the show being an hour. Casey's like, we do an hour. I'm like, I'm done after an hour. I can't even talk. Well, so we still got to get to the main segment.
It's not just us because the people are watching this too. So you have to make sure that they're still interested. Yeah. You can't talk for too long.
No, I say to Casey all the time. I say, I think the audience is our age. I'm tired. I go to bed at 9:30 now. I'm old.
You do? Oh man.
No. But
the night just begins at 9:30. Come on.
Yeah, you're still living like a rock star. I don't know how you do it. I just don't know how you do it. All right, so the main segment of today's show, and yes. why I have Paul on, because I knew he could do this with ease. All right, I came up with the idea, and Casey can't do this. Casey missed this generation by like 2 years, and even though it was a short, explosive scene, if you missed it, you missed it all. So he couldn't do any of this. But we're going to talk about the 10 greatest hair metal bands you may have missed. So I asked Paul to come up with 5 names of bands. None of us can use Heaven's Edge, by the way, because I knew we'd all do that as number one. Come up with 5 bands and just tell us a little about it. I'm going to add the song later in the production, so I'll just like a little clip of them. So who would like to go first? Should you go first? Should we do rock, paper, scissors? I'm sure the audience would love listening to us do that. Why don't you go first, Paul?
Okay, but first I got to say, when you told me to come up with 5, I came up with like 15. So and this is how ridiculous I am. I categorize it. I'm like 5 that should not have been considered hair metal, but somehow got lumped in there, and then I got 5 that are just total hair metal, and then I got 5 that are that people, I think people know them, but they're just kind of underrated. So, like, which way do you want to go with this?
Ooh, that's good. What's your most general one? And then we'll circle back at the end and just read your list for the other. What's your favorite one? We'll just go with your favorite list there.
All right.
I love the categorization.
One that's really special to me is a band called Electric Angels. And this is one, I think you even missed the boat on this one. I remember we were in Bonnie's Rocks. I must have been with Joe. And this was like the place where all like the up and coming, bands would either hang out or play or whatever. And Atlantic Records had just signed these guys, and they did not belong at all. I mean, of course, everybody had the hair and the leather and the total, like anything that you would think of like Poison era kind of thing. Well, in walked these guys that looked like they just came from like a 70s, they looked like they were in Bowie's band, and they had these like velvet jackets and, just a total different look. But it was all 4 of the band members, and they were not playing that night. And they had their 8x10s, with the Atlantic Records logo on it. And they were there to promote their show. I guess they had lived, they're in New York. And so they came down to New Jersey, and they were just like, there's something special about them. and I didn't know what it was, And then I went and saw them, and they were fantastic. What's interesting about this band is that the album was produced by Tony Visconti, who, if you know Bowie, like he produced all like a lot of the Bowie stuff, and he produced all of the T-Rex stuff until and he produced, gosh, so many great classic, wonderful albums, and these guys got a chance with him. And then they used like the photographer. There was like this well-known photographer that shot all the legends. Everything was just top notch, and Atlantic Records, you can't get much better than that. And the singer was like this enigmatic kind of guy named Shane, and he only went by the name Shane, and he was just very, quiet, mysterious, and they put on a great show. And the guitar player Ryan Roxie was great, and the bass player Jonathan Daniel went on to write. He wrote all the songs, and they were just this kind of snarky, commentary about love and stuff like that. And they didn't belong, but that was what was kind of cool about them too. And so, interestingly enough, you wanted some other facts about them. Ryan Roxie now plays guitar for Alice Cooper, and yeah, and so
I know which person that is now that you say it. All right.
Yes, yeah. A lot of people think he looks like Johnny Depp, but maybe Johnny Depp looks like him. I don't know, but because Ryan's always looked like this, and then the bass player Jonathan Daniel went on to. He is now a music manager in New York for Crush, and he manages, Lana Del Rey, Fall Out Boy. Who else? Courtney Love, just all these like really cool people, and then the drummer, now teacher in L.A. But the singer completely disappeared. And of course, if you ever try and find a guy just named Shane, it's very hard. And this guy is not on social media. In fact, I thought he was dead. And some people were asking, "Is he dead?" And there's been no reply. So. Maybe he's dead. And I tracked him down. He is alive and well and living right in the middle of New York City.
How'd you find him? Nobody else could find him.
Well, that is an interesting thing. I did track him down. It's just kind of going down the rabbit hole. It's what I do. I find people, and I take them out of retirement. And my goal was to maybe to get them back together. This is kind of funny. And I was going to make like a little documentary about trying to get them back together, with the goal being just this one. Just one-off show, and they all agreed that it was probably a bad idea.
Oh, really?
But I got a hold of all four of them, and ended up putting Shane back in touch with with Jonathan, and they ended up reissuing their CD or their album, and then they had this lost album that never came out, and Shane put out a solo album, and so it's just been pretty cool to kind of become friendly with this cool singer that just walked in. And his stories, you got to have him on the show sometime. His stories are incredible. So and he used to in their video they had, what's her name from Married with Children?
Oh yeah, it's Christina Applegate.
Yes. And so she was the girl in the video because he was dating her at the time. So they have all these like crazy stories. And so funny enough, at Critics' Choice Awards not last year, the year before, or whenever the last one was before, I guess, the pandemic, I see Christina Applegate, and I stopped her and I said, "I got to see something to do maybe no one else has said before. I loved you in the Electric Angels video." She's like, "Oh my God." And we got in this conversation, and she's like, "Whatever happened?" And so, Shane was very happy to hear that, she remembered and all that stuff. So it's cool. But that is one that, sorry, that was very long-winded, but that was one that was special to me, and now is special just because, Shane calls me all the time. So it's kind of fun.
I remember them being around, and I remember you liking them. There were certain bands that you and notably Steve, our other friend, we got to get him on someday.
Yeah.
Like he liked more of the Dokken, Whitesnake, the more serious stuff. You liked some of the sleazier stuff. Like you were into like the sleaze bees and things like that. And I remember I was more into the party stuff, like Poison and the high guitar, stuff. But every once in a while, I got into a Faster Pussycat or something like that.
Yeah.
But I sometimes I would look at yours guys' bands and go, nah, that's not a good one. And I don't know why. I have no good reason for that. All right, I'm
You
going to
know,
give you my what? Huh?
I was gonna say there's a lot of that back then. There's a whole lot of there's no sort of good reason or rhyme behind it, but that people would just choose something. They'd be like,
Yeah,
"That's my band," and that's no good, like without even really knowing it, you know.
you're totally
And
right.
so, and so that's another funny thing too, and that's also a trait that kids still have now. Be like, "Oh, you like that?" Nah.
Yeah, yeah,
and
you're
but
right.
but good songs, people will find and they'll make their way back into your life at some point.
We used to have that Metal Edge magazine, man.
Yeah.
I wouldn't miss a copy of that, and it was like People magazine, but all about hair metal, and it would be different profiles on different people, and there would be people who are like, oh, I hate that band. I'm like, why? Why do you hate a band? But I did. I hated a band, and I had no good reason for it.
It's funny out there. I know we got to get to the picks here, but Jerry Miller was the editor for that. Remember, she was that lady that just seems like kind of out of place almost, And you would always see her in her little letter at the beginning. She would be photographed with like the coolest bands because all those great photo shoots that they had. There she is hanging out
Yeah.
with the bands and talking about, oh, I went to their show or their hotel, and like, wow, that's what I want to do so bad. And that and Headbangers Ball, watching Ricky Rackman, like do his thing, and I'm like, see, he doesn't look like a TV guy. Maybe I could do it. So
Yeah.
funny thing is, I was the Las Vegas. this the Las Vegas surprisingly spends money on trying to get people to come to Vegas, even though you would think that there's not that kind of thing. So I went to a thing in Las Vegas, and they part of the trip included this helicopter ride into the Grand Canyon, which was really cool in itself. But who did I end up on the helicopter with and standing in the Grand Canyon with was Jerry Miller. So
Really?
yes, and so I was like, oh my gosh, it was like seeing like a big celebrity,
Yeah.
and she was so dismissive of the time and just kind of like, oh, that was a long time ago, and that was silly and all that. I was like, no, that was so cool, and we kind of got to know each other, and then I started to see her around at some of these, she was doing like TV writing, and unfortunately she passed away. Just a couple of years ago, but it was cool to get to kind of know her and exchange emails and ask her questions about that time, and then also to be able to get to talk to Ricky Rackman as well, and have him tell me you were doing the exact right thing, So it's kind of cool,
Yeah.
full circle.
Yeah. Yeah. I knew you met Ricky Rackman. Jerry Miller, yeah, she
Mhm.
became a little celebrity to us little hair metal kids.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah. She
Yeah,
sure
and
did.
so there's a picture of me and her in the Grand Canyon doing this. So it's kind of cool.
Well, one of the band that I'm going to say here is a band that I found on Metal Edge, because
Mhm.
really these bands only got a chance to survive if they were big enough to make it to mainstream everyday afternoon MTV. But that
Right.
Heaven's Edge, that Headbangers Ball was
Mhm.
like everything. That was, if you can make it on a Headbangers Ball, you got a shot at the big leagues. So
Mhm.
I would watch it religiously, and new bands would come on, and I even remember as it was starting to switch over to grunge. Like, I remember Alice in Chains was a new band in there. I was like,
Mhm.
oh, okay, all right. But one of the bands that I found was Babylon AD, and
Ah,
do
yeah.
you remember
Mhm.
them?
Of course, yes.
See, all right. So Babylon AD, I'm not going to do nearly as good a job as you did. Babylon, and I pulled this right from Wikipedia, so we always say it could be true. Who knows? Might be fucking false. Babylon AD is an American hard rock band formed in 1987. They hail from the San Francisco Bay Area. In 1989, Babylon AD caught the attention of Arista Records president and industry music mogul Clive Davis. Remember that guy? Like, he
Mhm.
was signed
Yes,
to
of
all the
course.
big names. Who
He's
signed
still
them?
he's
Is he still
still
in?
yeah.
Really? He doesn't still do music, does he? Or work in music?
Yes, he's so he has the Clive Davis party, which is the big party that you could possibly get into. It's always the night before the Grammys. So Grammys is always on Sunday, and he has the big party Saturday night at the Beverly Hilton, which is the same site of the Golden Globes. So,
Very
and
cool. Wow.
if you get into that party, you will bump into all kinds of people that you. In fact, that is where right after that, that's where Whitney Houston died. So,
Oh my God.
and I think he had discovered her, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, I
But
think, yeah.
yeah.
Was it
So
her or
yeah,
was it?
crazy.
Oh, we're talking about hair metal, not Whitney Houston. Jeez.
Yes. Sorry,
We,
I
hair
digress.
metal, not Whitney.
Yeah.
Um, I guess, when I read this and Clive Davis discovered him, that makes me even more nuts because that guy knew
Hmm.
good music, but this band did
Oh
not
yeah.
take on. They had
Yeah.
take off. They had 3 hits. They had "Bango the Bells," "Hammer Swings Down." The Kid Goes Wild was a song. It was on the RoboCop 2 soundtrack. I was like, this is gonna be it for them. They're gonna break. They're gonna break, and they never did. But their
Yeah.
music is so good. Amazing guitar players, really good, well-structured songs, incredible record. It's really well produced, and they just never
Hmm.
really got caught on fire. I don't know why.
Yeah. It just happened, it's Ahmet Erdogan, who's with Atlantic Records, that guided the careers of everybody from Ray Charles to everybody that was on Atlantic Records. He's the one that was guiding Shane from Electric Angels afterwards, and was like, don't worry about that. You're gonna do this great album for us, and da, da, da. And it just never happened. And so these things, they just happen. Sometimes they're well intentioned. Sometimes you have the best people behind them, and it just doesn't go anywhere. Same thing in movies, or
Yeah,
probably anything in business.
yeah, yeah. Well, you and me were in a band that flirted with a record deal. It's like,
Yeah.
they're really signing bands, but they expect every penny back. And if you don't
Hmm.
fucking make it huge, you got to pay it back. And yeah, that's why there's a lot of bands out there that you never heard of. They didn't have the push behind them, and they were soft risks for these record companies.
Oh
Anyway,
yeah.
I don't want to run out of time here. I want to get to all of
Yes.
your
Yeah.
stuff
Go
because I
ahead.
like that you brought extra stuff. All right, who's next on your list?
Woo! There's another band that I really liked, that really also went nowhere. Was Black Eyed Susan, and so
I remember
see,
them. We
was a
went to see them
curveball.
at Bonnie's or one of those
That's
places.
true. So, right about the time that Black Crows hit, the hair started coming down, I think, a little bit. This is pre Nirvana, but, it was like there was, kind of telling things were changing a little bit. But Black Crows is just this good timey rock and roll, whatever. And Black Eyed Susan really just fell on that. So it was Dean Davidson, who was the singer of Britney Fox. And he put together this group, which was a couple of people that were, I guess, well known in the Philadelphia or Jersey area.
I lived like a king. I acted the fool. Thought I was satisfied.
So the keyboard player was the keyboard player for Cinderella, and he was known as their secret weapon. And so they were trying to do this like cool, bluesy rock and roll kind of thing, and the album is really really good. And I think it's one that I could still hear, and I still like the songs.
I'll have to check that
And
one out.
and
Let me
that
jump in
yeah.
on that because I
Mhm.
remember that band was that bluesy band, and I remember thinking they're never going to work. They don't understand what the scene is. How
Yeah.
dumb was I? Because when you listen to like Guns N' Roses, they're that kind of Aerosmith inspired blues rock. But
Yeah.
sometimes they're that like Hanoi rocks, kind of other
Mhm.
sleazy style of music. But the bands back in those days, they did have certain similarities to other genres.
Mhm.
Bluesy used to make me nuts. I hated Cinderella because they were trying to be bluesy. And you guys were always like, yeah, these are the good bands. I'm like, I don't like bluesy.
Yeah.
Now, I can't wait to go re-listen to Black Eyed Susan and just go and see what I was too stupid to fucking hear in the past.
Yeah, the interesting part, speaking of the Black Crowes, is that after the first album, they ended up getting the guitar player from Black Crowes, Jeff Cease.
That's
Um,
right. I
yeah,
remember that.
and he came and played the cell block with them, which was wild, and that was another step towards like, wow, we're running across all these like amazing people.
Yeah. Boy, that you're bringing back memories. And what was
I
so
have
cool
plenty.
about Yeah, we're gonna do that game one day. We'll see who remembers what. But I mean, the greatest thing about being a kid in that scene, like bands really were able to. You got access to the bands, and we became so interested in having access to bands that even bands that weren't signed, even like local bands that sounded like good heavy metal, hair metal, we were all about that too. Like we were taking it all. You can't do that now. I mean,
No.
do you think there'll ever be a town music scene again where it, just creates just all these stars? Like I think everything is just too mixed up in genres, and just a different day that I don't think will come back.
Yeah, and that was part of the thing back then is like you would go early and check out the opening bands, and why not? Hey,
Yeah.
you just grab your friends and you just go, but that's the thing, we were not distracted by our phones were now all of us, where it's like the best option wins, and
Yeah.
that could change at a moment's notice. We could be at one place watching this band and be like, oh, let's go see this other thing, and me being me, I'm like, all right, let's go. and and so but there you just kind of went and you parked and you just watched what you watched, and I would never do that now. I don't think I can imagine myself going to see a brand new signed band and then four totally unknown bands and just standing there all night and not even having a drink and just standing there and just like taking it all in. But that was part of the magic of that time too. And plus, there were so many bands that were actually pretty good and had a lot of talent, and maybe had a chance at some point. So it's kind of cool. And now I really don't feel like there's not even as many bands to have that.
It's yeah. I hate to be nostalgic and all sappy about it, but it was a special fucking time. It was a special time.
It was.
All right, my next one. All right,
Yes.
Dangerous Toys. I put on the list.
Yes. Mhm.
Like to me and you, that's that's not a rare band, but I don't think a lot of people know that band. So
Mhm.
here's Dangerous Toys. So it was like that. They were a little bit sleazy, but in that fun way, in that
Yeah.
like sexy way. So I like all dirty stuff. So I was like, oh, I like this band. I got a song called "Sportin' a Woody." I'm like, well, I'm gonna listen to this band. They were still somehow like Southern rock crispy. Like they were very sharp. They weren't
Yeah.
like a lot of the bands were back then when it was like super compressed and layered and very rich, and like I remember listening to some old like Whitesnake stuff, and it just sounds like they just layered it so thickly. Thickly. I don't even know if thickly is a word, but that's what they did. I liked the stuff that was a lot crispier. Like when Poison played their guitar, you heard one guitar playing, right? So this band was really crisp, great riffs. I remember we even met the band. We stood out somewhere.
Yeah.
And we met the band, and I remember the guitar player gave me one of these little jazz picks, and he's like, "Oh, I use this," and I'm like, "That blows my mind." A heavy metal guitar player plays these jazz, and he was a cool player. It's like,
Yeah.
yeah, they weren't your everyday type of band. They were fun. They hung around for a while, but for us, they're Southern. They're from Austin, I think. They're from.
They are.
I know they're from Texas. So like for me, I only knew them for an album or two, and then I know they're still active, but I don't hear from them anymore.
Made new music in forever, but they, just like a lot of these bands, they'll get, an offer to jump on these shows, and they'll just every once in a while, hey, Dangerous Toys is playing. Oh wow, oh that's cool. And
I'd
it's
love to see
still,
them
I
again.
think like maybe, I want to say it's still like four out of five of them maybe, so it's kind of cool to do all that because there's so many of these bands now. It's only like one original member, or in the case of Quiet Riot, no original members. So
Is that true?
that is true. Yeah. They did get Rudy Sarzo back in the band, but he wasn't even like an original member. So it's but Frankie Benali, the drummer, was the last man standing in the band, and then when he died, they actually replaced him, and so now there's the whole band's touring around, with with no one that played on Come On Feel the Noise or any of that. So
That's
it's wild.
embarrassing. At this point, it's now a cover band. They use the original band's name. I mean, that's terrible.
Well, I mean, there's also Foreigner, to take it out of hair metal. They do the same thing. They have the guitar player Mick Jones is the last like original guy, but he had some kind of medical issue or something, and so he sometimes tours with them, usually tours with them, but will only play a few songs. So there's a good point in the night a good chunk of the night where there are no original members on stage, which is really bizarre considering the singer is still alive and well.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So
Oh my God, that's bizarre as hell.
yeah.
That's
Yeah,
crazy.
but what's interesting, here's to tie that back into hair metal. The singer of Hurricane now sings for Foreigner. So how do you like that? Ah,
Really?
and
Oh,
the
that's a
and
band that could have made my list.
that's right. And the bass player is from Dokken. So there you go.
Wow.
Foreigner became a little bit more hair metal.
Wow. Wow. All right.
See, all this useless knowledge just stuck in my
You're
head.
you're remarkable. You're remarkable. It's getting late. I'm gonna have to turn the lights on here. Holy shit. We
Oh,
gotta keep it moving. Who's your next one?
yes. All right. Now I don't know if this falls under if it falls under the underrated or whatever, but LA Guns. You know,
LA Guns, yeah.
there's a lot of people that do not still do not know them, but they are actually still around and still making music. In fact, there's two different versions of them going around, which is really bizarre. But but LA Guns was like one of those ones. They were so almost. In fact, they went over the almost, and they had a big hit. They even had a gold record. You know, they had Ballad of Jane. But if you were to ask people on the street, you know, you remember LA Guns? Probably means about as much to them as Dangerous Toys, which is strange to me, you know. But within the sort of hair metal community or hair metal fans, they are beloved. And you know, Tracy Guns, the guitar player, is just an absolute animal on the guitar, and he's so good. And he just plays the songs just with the greatest of ease, you know. And you know, seeing them open for AC/DC and meeting them, you know, was just such a thrill back in the day. But yeah, they never. And you know, he's the guy. I don't know if you realize this, but Guns N' Roses was Tracy Guns and Axl Rose.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that was the thing. So I mean, this, if you want to talk about almost, but also still, you know, still really cool. They're out there. In fact, they're going to be in town next week. So still the singer Phil Lewis and Tracy Guns are still in the band, and they're putting out some music that is actually really good. You know, probably one of the only bands from that time that's still putting out new albums that are actually like, oh, this is really cool. So,
will
so
check
good for
that
them.
out.
Yeah.
How about it? See, I
right,
didn't
what's
think of
yours?
them on that list because that Ballad of Jane was a
Yeah.
big song, but you made a
big
good
song.
point. One song in a sea of a million big hits because it seemed like there was a new hit song every week.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so, you know, when they have the big tours, like the stadium tour with Motley Crue and Def Leppard and all that, the LA Guns is not on there, and they probably should be. So,
Yeah. I loved them.
mhm.
Damn, I could have put them on my list. All right, my next one I have is Infectious Grooves, and I think
yeah.
of all of us in our group, you guys didn't like them nearly as much as I did. Like, I think this was the one that I couldn't sell to you guys.
Yeah.
So for some reason, what? Go ahead.
I was gonna say it's the singer of Suicidal Tendencies who, you know, who was kind of more acceptable in what we do, Mike Muir. But he, you know, and the bass player was Robert Trujillo, who now plays for Metallica.
And
So
dude, he's sick too. Like,
it's
they
incredible.
put out, I don't know who produced the record. I'm blanking on it, but Suicidal Tendencies was a band that always scared me as a kid. I was like, oh,
Yeah.
they're scary. I don't want-" And then we put out an album. It was around like '89, and it was very much an accessible album for me. Like, it sounded like hair metal a little bit.
Mhm.
And then I heard that bass player in there when he talked about, when I heard that they did this Infectious Grooves, the only reason I found out about them is because they had a track with Ozzy Osbourne. And I was into Ozzy Osbourne. I was very into Ozzy Osbourne.
Therapy.
Therapy. That was all he had to do. What a job, Ozzy. What a job. So, like, I'm listening to this album because, you know, it wasn't getting played very often, so I had to go and grab all the cash I could find from the couch cushions. And remember where we used to go? We used to go to Best Buy Best Buy was brand new, and for some reason they sold CDs and cassettes cheaper than anybody else. So you and me would go to Best Buy all the time. So I went to Best Buy and I bought this album, and the bass playing on there. I was like, who is this? I had never, because I grew up playing guitar with just what I heard in hair metal. So that bass player who's with Metallica, and every time I see him, I go, somebody give this guy a bass solo. He's so phenomenal. And the band immediately, I loved funk metal and I loved ripping guitar solos. It was great. And there were bands like Extreme and Bang Tango and other things that were supposed to be funk metal. And I was like, no, this is funk metal. Do you even remember? Here's a story I remember. We went to New York, you and me, and we went to one of the music stores that probably, ain't around anymore, but it was an underground something. We walk in, and I'm this little nerd, and I walk up to the guy behind the counter, and I go, I love funk metal, right? Because I was an Extreme fan. He goes, like what? I said, Extreme. He goes, you fucking asshole, you idiot. Never say that word in this store. And I was like, well, what am I supposed to buy? Yeah, and he gave me the Limbo Maniacs. Remember them?
Yeah, yep.
And I
He's
was
probably
so
in the
excited.
band.
He probably was in the fucking band. I was so excited to have it. I popped the tape into the thing on the way home. Your dad drove us home from New York, and I remember listening to it. I fucking hate this. I hate it. I was not ready for it. And I put the damn CD away for like 4 years. I still think it's one of the best CDs I had in my youth. But I remember, just funk metal was a thing. We talked about the genres that were kind of a thing. There was like sleaze rock. There was a little bit of funk. Later on, there was a little country. Like Bon Jovi had that Young Guns 2 song. Remember that?
Yeah, Blaze of Glory.
Regular hair metal is fine for me.
Yeah.
Infectious Grooves, they were good.
Yeah, that's true.
All right, you're up.
Okay, well, this next one, because like I said, I have several of these. This next one, I was like, you know what? They are underrated. If you're to put underrated on everything, but Twisted Sister, also Widowmaker, so maybe I'll put that together because most people hadn't heard of Widowmaker, so that'll be like the bonus one. But both were fronted by Dee Snider, and these guys, they played so many shows in like that New Jersey, New York area. And just got booed all the time. They wore what we consider girls' clothes and makeup and all that stuff. And they fought the hard fight, and they finally broke through on MTV and became really popular on there. There's a thing, the PMRC, the Parents Music Resource Center, I think, was Tipper Gore, Al Gore's wife, started this thing. And along with Frank Zappa and John Denver, Dee Snider went into Congress dressed in full Twisted Sister gear and went and read out, this amazing, brilliant statement, about everything that they said was wrong. And he was such a hero and did really so much for metal and hair metal. And I think people kind of forget that. And also on top of that, they just it's, you hear, we're not going to take it, or I want to rock, but I don't know that, again, you start polling people on the streets, like Twisted Sister should absolutely be on that stadium tour, but they're just not really in the conversation for whatever reason,
That's a really good point. Yeah. Twisted Sister was always there, but they weren't cool in that later hair metal period. What a ripoff for them. What happened? Yeah. Right, because then Dee Snider had to go and do a new band to be relevant in this scene.
Yeah, and so then he went and did Widowmaker, which was fantastic. That first album was just incredible. He even had the drummer for Twisted Sister. But the guitar player was Al Pitrelli, who is now the band leader of Trans-Siberian Orchestra, who now plays stadiums. So,
I didn't know that. Oh, he's a great shredder. He's amazing.
And he lives right near you in the Poconos. So
get out of here.
Yeah. So you got to go hang out with him.
I would love to.
Yeah. I'll have to connect
his address. When
they do the promotional rounds for Trans-Siberian, you got to talk to him. He's got great stories and just a total, just Philly kind of, Jersey kind of guy. You'll love him.
Yeah. Oh, I'm gonna have to find that album too. That was such a good album.
Mm-hmm.
Widowmaker. Yeah, we went
And
and saw them.
it's a very hard. Yes, and that's a very hard one to find too.
Oh, really?
So,
it's not on Spotify?
no, I don't know that it is. So you might have to go to YouTube for that.
Yeah, everything's on YouTube.
Yeah.
Man, there's some weird
Everything.
shit. Oh my god. Like things I'm like, they'll never have Trouble Tribe, and they had the old Trouble Tribe. I was like, you gotta be kidding! It's on YouTube. Somebody leaked it on YouTube.
Yeah. Yeah.
My number 4 is Scatterbrain.
Scam Boogery.
Scam. Another band that couldn't really be friends with the rest of the hair metal bands. Like they just couldn't get on tours with other guys. We actually went to see him at Bonnie's Rocks, and Ugly Kid Joe, who was an absolute unknown, opened up for him. But Scatterbrain. So Scatterbrain was an American electric thrash metal band. I wouldn't ever call it thrash metal. Founded in 1989 after their in Long Island. I don't care about some of this stuff. The band performed distinctive live shows in which they would incorporate a Mozart medley mixed with Motorhead, cross-dressing, and giant chickens. So I was like, I'm into this. And they had the hit on Headbangers Ball, like How I Discovered Everything. So they had the song Don't Call Me Dude.
Here's my story, sad but true, about a girl that I once knew. She broke my heart, I became unglued. It all started when she called me dude.
Yeah.
And it was just like a skit song. And it was stupid, but I loved it. I had so much fun with it. So I got into the Scatterbrain album, and I loved the fuck out of Scatterbrain because they didn't sound like any other hair metal band. Just like, Primus kind of came out doing hair metal. Primus didn't fit either. Oh, I should have thought of Primus as the hair metal band you don't think of, because they tried with that Tommy the Cat phase, but yeah, they didn't fit in at all. But Scatterbrain was another one. They were super, super good, very adept musicians, and almost nobody knows of them.
Yeah,
crazy
that's true. Yeah. All right. So my last one is one that I actually was not into as a kid, but I've found them more recently, or later years, and that is Junkyard. Which are really sort of Southern blues rock kind of thing, but they were from Hollywood. They're the Sunset Strip, so they had an element of that. And the guitar player actually went on he's in Bad Religion right now. So yeah.
Two bands that do not seem like they have anything in common.
Not at all, but they're also Junkyard's, another one that's like beloved amongst the people that know them. They collect their vinyl, and they're an important band. They got the piano and it's actually worth listening to now, to go back and be like, wow, that was good, and there's so many like honorable mentions in there, that are were fun, that did cool things, that are, but those I think were the ones that are kind of like the, if someone's listening, to be like, wow, what should I go back and listen to? What did I miss? Hopefully those are ones, Electric Angels and Black Eyed Susan and all that. Like, go back and, check them out. See what you think. See if they still stand up.
Oh, yeah, I'm definitely going to, because I want to see if they stand up, too, because they were good rocking. I said earlier, I don't like the bluesy stuff. Whenever somebody puts on a fucking cowboy hat and a harmonica, like, I'm out. But they were Southern rock. They were, like, remember Rhino Bucket? Remember, there were a couple bands that were, like, really... Is that the right one? But there was like these Southern rock hair metal bands. Jackal, wasn't so into Jackal, but yeah, man, Junkyard was a good band. Nice catch. I forgot about them.
And still are. Yeah, you can catch them on tour, and they sound great. Yeah. So they're one of the ones that can still actually do what they do. So good for them.
Oh, see, that's what kills me because they were at least 10 years older than us when we were fans of them.
Oh yeah,
I can't get on those stages now. I'm too fucking old and tired. And they're still doing it. Pisses me off. All right, so my last band is is this one? Maybe I was wrong, and people do know this band, Bullet Boys.
Smooth opinion. Mama, whoa.
Yes, Mark
Boys.
Torian. Yeah,
Mark Torian.
absolutely.
Well, I just thought this band was absolutely amazing, right? First off, they got a song called Hard as a Rock. So I'm like, yeah, my little pervy, little rebellious kid self was like, I love this band. Smooth Up In Ya, which everybody thought was Smooth Opinion.
Yeah.
Smooth Up In Ya. And then Love of Money. And the guitar player, he never went anywhere. He did this. Maybe he did the second album. I can't remember, but he just did this album and that's it. And then he was out of the band. And it was such a good rocking band. And Mark Torian, as I know it, right, he was just another guy that would kick around. Maybe it was L.A. He would just kick around the hair metal scene, trying to get in every single band and hoping that something would take off for him. I think he was in Rat before Rat got signed, right, if I got that right. And then he started this one, and he's the singer and he's a guitar player. I don't know if he even plays guitar in it, but his voice is fucking amazing.
Yeah, so he actually does play guitar, and he plays all the parts incredibly, and so that was another band that just went down to him being the only original member, but, also being as good of a guitar player as he was and being, still having a great voice, and, being part of that time, it still sounded like Bullet Boys because, it was them. The guitar player you're talking about is Mick Sweeta. And they actually, and then they had the album called Freak Show, and they had cool songs on there like THC Groove and stuff like that.
That's right. Yeah.
But recently, in fact, I guess maybe this last year or last year and a half, I guess a few years ago, Mark's like a likable guy. They had Ted Templeman, who produced Van Halen, produced their album, and so they had that big tie to it. But, they got lumped into the hair metal, and a lot of those guys don't keep up with it. But somehow Mark ended up recording a song in Foo Fighters studio, and, became friends with those guys and all that stuff. And so they were on a trajectory to kind of, maybe do something cool now. And then they go back and go for the big reunion, and all four of them get back together, which, people didn't think was going to happen. And then they had this big explosive tour, something bad happened, and now all the other three are out of the band, and he's back to having a completely different band. But they're still around too.
Oh my God. What a story.
I'm full of them. What do you need?
Oh, man. Yeah.
And now we've hit our hour mark. So there you go.
We have, but I still want to hear. I'm ready for the absolute. Just hit me with the names. Hit me with some names. I'll do it too. I'll start to try to think of some names that didn't make this list.
Okay.
All right.
Oh gosh. So underrated or just like ones you may not know about?
Let's do. Because we could. You could take us to another to 11 o'clock. So yeah, let's do other underrated ones that people should know and remember.
Okay. Let's see. Child's Play. They are from Baltimore, and they had just such great energy. And they were also the first ones that we saw at Bonnie's Rocks, and they were just they were just tons of energy. And the drummer, I think, is still in some band you probably heard of that's touring around right now that I can't think of. So, but the singer sadly died, but they're just kind of legendary Baltimore band that never quite happened, but they were good.
Yeah. How about Pretty Boy Floyd? I heard them on the Peacemaker soundtrack. I was like, oh my God, I remember them. They could have made this list.
Yeah, that's another one that has one original member left, the singer, but they're still going. They're still doing it. So good for them. Spread Eagle. This is a band.
You loved Spread Eagle, and I tried so hard to love them because I even knew Eddie Van Halen loved them.
Yeah. Well, what's weird is they had such an incredible guitar player. I believe Paul DiBartello is his name. And now he goes by this, he's like a yogi, and you can find his videos on YouTube. I don't think he plays music anymore, but really interesting stuff. But he was just such an incredible talent. And that's a band that's still together, I guess minus him, and I think a different drummer. But yeah, they're still going. Yeah, but there's something kind of they fell into that kind of like sleazy, dangerous New York City. The singer looked like he might fight you.
Right.
And but they were. I don't know. Some of these things you look back now and you're just like, oof, I don't know about that then, but like it was tough. It was like kind of like Guns N' Roses' Appetite for Destruction kind of tough. They just kind of came out and just hammered it, and I don't know. I always thought they were kind of cool, and some of it still does hold up.
Mm. I'm just now thinking about your tape collection. You had Tough, you had Love Hate.
I had everything. Oh yeah, Love Hate. That was one that was kind of on the list of like, well, maybe they just remember the singer had that crazy promotional stunt, which ties into your story recently. It's the reason you can't walk up in the Hollywood Hills by the Hollywood sign because he crucified himself on the Hollywood sign when the first album came out, and they had news cameras flying around, and after that they fenced it off. You can't touch the Hollywood sign anymore because of him.
Dude, no fucking lie. I was just in LA and I was just
Yeah.
trying to figure out how to get up there.
Yeah.
And I was like, the only way I can see to get up there is to walk up this deserty trail with rattlesnakes. I was like,
Yeah.
I know people have been up there. I didn't know it was him, and I didn't know he
Yeah.
was the reason I can't get up there now. I wanted to see what kind of graffiti was on the back. How about
Yeah.
that?
Well, he sings for Quiet Riot now, so you can go give him a hard time when they come around.
Oh, yeah. I'm gonna make him give me a helicopter ride and take me up there.
All right, who else you got?
Oh shit. Bang Tango, I mentioned them earlier. Tora
Yeah.
Tora, Saigon Kick, I'm remembering from your drawer. Hurricane Alice, Hurricane, Kick Tracy. Who else did you have? Sick Vicky. I didn't know what a Sick Vicky was.
White Lion. How about that?
White
Vito
Lion.
Bratta, incredible guitar
Great
player.
guitar player. Great guitar
And
player.
That's one that put down his guitar many, many years ago and never picked it back up.
He's like
So-
super special. Like he should still be playing. People should be hearing what he's doing today. He was a great guitar player. Yeah, White Lion.
Absolutely. Yeah. And then of course there's like Mr. Big. They had a big hit, but like, a lot of people still, would not know them. But like Paul Gilbert, monster guitar player, and Billy Sheehan, incredible bass player,
And in a way, we forget, but Def Leppard, we were talking about earlier about bands that were like, Def Leppard was in there for a minute, but people don't think of them as hair metal. Same Bon Jovi, like people forgot they were hair metal.
Oh yeah. Well,
These are still hair metal bands.
and even Whitesnake, they had the singer of Deep Purple, and they were kind of Whitesnake started out as like this very like, I don't know, Deep Purple-ish kind of, like 70s rock kind of thing. They were like classic rock, and then they totally, revamped it for the hair metal days, and that's kind of where it ended up. And even now looking back, some people look at Warrant and they go, "Man, Janie Lane was a good songwriter. He had so many songs that were not hits, that were just actually good songs." So that's been interesting to revisit. And of course, Cinderella. Tom Kiefer is kind of stuck around, and another one that was unfairly placed was Tesla. They were not really hair metal. But they got thrown into all that. And,
Sure did. Yeah, they did.
And so those are the ones I kind of think about and think, like, and Extreme, they had some amazing songs, and towards like the third or fourth album, like they were doing it, and those songs still are really good. So
there's a lot of people that just think that Extreme is more than words, and I'm like, no, like they're one of the shreddier guitar bands out there. Yeah.
And they just played their first show, I think, last night, and like 3 years, and they said that they have a new album coming, which I'm really curious to hear, like if they can still do it for us. But Nuno is one of the greats of the time.
They put out a live album not too long ago, and then a new album before that. And I thought it was great. Yeah, they're a great band. I'll say there's a couple bands that, and they were one of them that you knew it was like these guys are a little bit more special than the others. Like you got to stick with them, but there weren't too many. There really weren't too many, and some ran out of gas before they had a chance to really show us what they had.
Yeah. Yeah,
Wow.
some of them did. Some of them are still around. So it's interesting to see like where people have ended up now. But yeah,
Yeah.
it's been fun, and it's great to revisit the stuff too, because they'll probably think about these songs and go back and listen to it. And I hope people that are watching will maybe go like Google or YouTube some of these bands and find them again, or who knows, maybe even some of these guys from the bands will see this and go, oh cool, thanks. It might. It's nice to be remembered, nice to know that, because a lot of these guys probably go a lot of time without hearing how much they were admired, and
Yeah.
it's nice to know that they made impression on impressionable minds.
Absolutely. Yeah. Guys from Trickster, come on, give us a shout out. We're talking about you.
That's right.
Steve Stevens, Atomic Playboys, all of yous. Give us a shout out.
Yeah. Yeah, you gotta love it. Yeah. Oh, and Shane from Electric Angels was supposed to sing for Steve Stevens, and Steve Stevens actually flew him in. There's a whole crazy story. You're gonna have to ask him about that one.
Oh my
So
God. You are,
there's so many tie-ins.
yeah, we're gonna have to come up with a game. The seven, what's that? Kevin Bacon, seven. Yeah,
Yeah.
you're gonna be able to pull it off for the hair metal
Oh
version.
gosh, yeah. It's I don't know if it's great or terrible, but here I am.
All right. Well, this was real fun, dude. Thanks so much for doing it.
Yes.
We're gonna run through some. This is the part that Casey does that I really don't know how to do. All right. So everybody, these are the plugs. Hey, check out some other great shows that we have on the Den, the Deluxe Edition Network. There's a lot of we started a podcast network, Paul, and like
Yeah, that's
Casey's
great.
running this thing. He's got some great podcasts on there. It's pretty damn good. You can support our show by going to patreon.com/deluxe edition pod. You can follow us on Twitter while it's still around. I don't know what Elon Musk is going to do with it. This is a shit show of crazy proportions, but while Twitter is there, you can find us on Deluxe Edition Pod. Casey forgot to put two E's on there, Deluxe Edition, so he just borrowed the same E. And I said, oh my God, nobody's going to remember that. He goes, but I ran out of characters. I was like, I guess I would have done the same. You can buy some shit from us at whatamaneuver.net. All right, you can go to whatamaneuver.net. You can search for Deluxe Edition or go to /collections. Okay, you get it. And then if you just didn't listen to any of that and you walk away with one thing, it's our webpage, deluxeedition.show. You can always go there and you can check out everything we're doing. Still very much appreciate you guys tuning in and helping us, spread the word. This is, I'm telling you, it's like we're cruising with a pretty decent audience of really fun people, but it's like breaking through in this podcast world. Mm-hmm. Unless you're Jason Bateman, who just started his own show, like if you don't already have a head start, it's really hard to break in. So we require this. We gave you this free fucking hysterical content. We require you tell one person.
Yeah, that's fair enough, right?
That's what I think for a free fucking show that's so funny. Why
Hopefully
are you laughing,
we're
Paul?
funny. I don't know.
Why are you laughing at that joke? That wasn't even a joke. Why are you laughing at that statement?
I'm funny looking. I don't know what you mean. I don't know if I'm that funny.
All right, before you go, tell us where
Yes.
people can find you as well.
Yes. You can find me. All of my socials are now under Paul Salfen, which is my name, Salfen. And I've got a book coming out called Going For It, where I interviewed a whole bunch of celebrities about their advice, their wisdom, and the crazy stories they did to make it. Did they sleep in a car? Did they borrow money? Did they do whatever they did? Did they pretend to be a catering person? It makes us not feel so bad about the crazy things that we've done, because they've done so much crazier things. And so here we are. It's going to come out. I hope everyone's going to love it, or at least feel like not such an alien in the world if you're a young aspiring artist.
I love it. We actually, lifting the curtain a little, last year Paul and I did a show when Casey was on vacation, and you were at the beach and the reception was so bad that we couldn't air the show. But yeah, man, like we haven't even begun to scratch the surface of Paul's stories. We haven't even begun.
We'll get to it.
All right, everybody. Thank you so much. Till next time.